Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and in today's video we're going to be doing a little review of a job that's just taken up our entire week. All hands to stations on this one, so I hope it makes for an interesting vid because I haven't had time to make one about anything else. So a while back we made the Wikelo Polaris as an org in one weekend, and that was a lot of fun. But this time we had an offer to do it again, but for a profit. Our newly founded trading house wing that specialises in P2P trading took an order to assemble and deliver all of the parts that our buyer was missing. So we rallied the org and we got to it. So if this sounds good to you, grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. Just for anyone who doesn't know, player-to-player trading is very much in an emergent state in Star Citizen, lacking a lot of the convenience factors like an auction house that you'd find in more established MMOs. However, to paraphrase Dr. Ian Malcolm, players will find a way. Two players can agree a trade, then one sends the cash while the other brings their physical goods up a freight elevator or places them in a container, allowing them to take possession by sending it back down. Sites like aUEC have established marketplaces, and there are also dedicated SC trading discords helping to link would-be buyers with would-be sellers. However, without game systems in place, there aren't any good zero-trust options. Either the seller has to hand the goods over before the money, or the buyer has to pay before they get the goods, leaving the door open to scams. To their credit, aUEC operates on a reputation system, with both parties rating the other one eBay style, so you can avoid someone with just a crappy rating. However, these systems do have their drawbacks, with the potential for scams and for sellers on the other side of the world not being able to get back to you at a time when you can arrange to meet up and exchange. So we decided to start our own shop within our Discord, brewed by a group of us from the org who are interested in mercantile pursuits. My hope is that since the reputation of the org is kind of on the line, that provides an added degree of confidence for buyers. We also have a multinational crew helping to deal with orders, so it's more likely that we'll see messages quickly and be able to find someone in a buyer's time zone. And as luck would have it, just as we were getting this trading wing off the ground, a buyer walked into the Discord looking for someone to get her all the remaining parts of a Polaris hand in for Wikelo. So how do we put a price on a Polaris? Well, the first thing was to have a good chat with the buyer and establish which parts she was missing, and what we could and couldn't do. Unfortunately, you need 9 chemical barrels from the Project Hyperion missions at the new ASD Onyx facilities, and this mission is just totally bugged out, so I couldn't commit us to getting any of these. Thankfully, she was just able to source those from other sellers. We then broke each item down by individual price based on what we were listing them for, and we applied a 5% bulk discount to the lot, giving us a value of 475 million credits. I was subsequently able to find 7 pure Caronite, one of the hardest elements of the recipe to get, so I knocked 75 million off to get to a 400 million credit price tag. In order to get all of this together, I would need to eat some of the upfront costs along the way, and there's always going to be a risk that someone sets you out on a job like this and then falls through when it's time to pay up. So for a bit of security on our end, we agreed a deposit of 175 million upfront. If for any reason we couldn't deliver on the goods, then I would return this to the buyer. If she couldn't pay for the rest for the delivery, we would keep the deposit and the materials. With that in the bank, it's time to get to work. Now, many people might think that my primary motivation here is money, and I'm not gonna lie, money is nice. But alongside the fact that I just enjoy the wheeling and dealing nature of P2P trading, my primary motivators are giving our org objectives to work towards that require group gameplay. Our individual traders had a lot of the goods lined up already. The smaller stuff like Wikelo favors are something many of us will just accrue over time just for moments like this. But for others, we had to go out and arrange getting them. For some of the smaller items, we instituted a bounty system, putting a call out to the whole of FRCN for certain items that we were short. We had some work to do getting the full 20 pristine UE 6th Platoon medals and the 20 DCHS-05 comp boards from the Ruin Station contested zone. This allowed various org members to get out and grind something specific, or put together small raiding groups, knowing that they could just conveniently sell back to the org and reap a nice payday. But some items, namely pure Charonite and Apex worm parts, required us to shape our event schedule, putting on raid nights for the org to go and hit certain content like Hathor. Honestly, it's a bit of a shame that I was down in the hole for the duration of a 5-hour stint in the mining tunnels on Saturday, because the first half hour of peace and quiet was followed by a non-stop 4.5 hours of screen shaking, explosions and dive bombers. I know that some people don't like elements of the game like Hathor specifically because large orgs like ours gatekeep that content, and therefore prevent smaller orgs and solo players from ever getting the rare resources inside. But for the game's longevity, it is important to have gameplay that caters to large organisations and offers them a challenge. And with this said, I think it highlights the importance of encouraging mercantile gameplay. Being able to sell goods from these sort of runs provides a motivation for larger orgs to work with smaller ones, rather than just beating them down and keeping the stuff. Just before we end with a happy buyer, I would take a short segue to have a little moan, specifically aimed at whoever in CIG is responsible for these Wikelo recipes. Last time we ran this I had a similar segment, arguing that in this scale of grind, RNG just isn't fun. The old recipe included a full set of Anorii armor. You had to get each piece individually, and it was essentially a 25% chance dice roll to get arms, legs, core, or a helmet. Now getting a full set was a total pain, and I ended up having to do a swap meet to get it when we had multiples of cores and arms, but no legs. That's off to CIG, because they have listened to the community about this, and the RNG from Wikelo has been removed. Armor sets are now acquired in full, and rather than getting a lucky dip of ships, you get to choose exactly the one you want. That is brilliant, and very much thank you for this. But the latest recipe also has a problem, just a different one: Atlasium. Atlasium is this highly valuable trade commodity available in small quantities with slow refresh rates at 6 locations across Stanton and Pyro. So in this context, 48 SCU of it for the recipe doesn't seem so bad. However, the recipe specifically requires that you deliver it in 6 8 SCU crates, and all of a sudden those 6 locations become one, Arccore Mining Area 157, which is the only one of the 6 that stocks 8 SCU boxes. The stock refreshes at a rate of roughly 1 SCU every 20 minutes, so in order to get an 8 SCU crate you have to wait 2 hours and 40 minutes between attempts. Then you need to factor in that the commodity inventories are shared across shards, so you're in a fastest finger contest, with anyone else looking to stock up on these for Polaris, including those people who know about this dynamic and are just doing it to sell the crates at an exorbitant profit. Then the issue gets exponentially worse when you consider that Atlasium, as stated earlier, is a valuable trade commodity. So other players, completely unconcerned by the need for this commodity for Polaris hand-ins, might just pop in to see if they can get a few SEU to ship over to a buying location for a profit. One of our crewmates was sat waiting for the tick when someone bought 6 SEU and set the clock back to 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's just my 2 cents here. I do not mind at all if something is hard to get, or if there's a big grind involved and you need a lot of something. I actually love it, and I think it offers a good chance to get into gameplay. Building cap ships is understandably endgame content, so the fact that we might need to run Hathor with 30 plus people 6 or 7 times to get enough pure Charonite, or shoot down 100 ace pilots to get the 20 pristine medals, in my opinion that's a-okay, because the underlying gameplay here is actually fun. But setting an alarm clock to be 15 minutes early to the next potential 8 SCU box of Atlasium, then sitting there flicking between screens to refresh in the hope that you are the one to get the box, just praying that no trader comes in and nabs 7 SCU while you're at it, is simply not fun for anyone. Still, big hats off to Larcy, Indo6 and Rex Alba for getting 2 boxes each to help us fulfill this contract. So we said we'd need a week, and we came in with a day to spare, getting the last few pure Charonite on Tuesday night. As tired as I was after another few hours down the hole at Hathor, I was keen to get this stuff out of my inventory and get paid. So we met the buyer in my hangar at Orison, and via a Discord stream were able to demonstrate that we had everything on her list. She paid up, and we got to transferring the goods. Admittedly, this part alone took a solid 1 hour and 45 minutes. While it would theoretically have been possible to just stick everything in a box and put it on the freight elevator, there is no way in hell that I'm risking the game randomly deciding that that's the time to make it all disappear. So we offloaded it in small batches using a variety of cupboards on ships and boxes, and the freight elevator where we absolutely had to. And as a bonus, since we'd just finished the op and a decent number of our Legion combat wing members were still online, we made the additional 50 million credits for an escort job, bringing the goods to a Wikelo Emporium for the hand-in. Sadly, my caffeine had very much run out at this point, and I had hit the hay. I've caught up with the buyer since, and she's assured me it all went smoothly. Thankfully I got a good night's sleep though, as my next morning was spent sending out shares to everyone in the org who'd got involved, and I'm just hoping that CIG don't confuse me for an aUEC seller and ban me ahead of 4.4. So there we have it. For anyone wondering how you make 450 million in a week, you've just got to get into shipbuilding. Being completely honest, I do actually think I underpriced this a little. I vastly underestimated the issues with Atlasium, and I probably priced DCHS-05 comp boards too low at 1.5 million apiece. With the competition for that one due to a large number of Wikelo ships relying on it, and the effectiveness of holding the Ruined Station vault with a pulverizer LMG, it should probably command a higher price. I'm not going to kick myself too hard. The job was an exciting challenge that generated us an absolute ton of gameplay over the week. And given how much our stocks have been depleted, we need to get on building those back up ahead of the next order. If you would like to check out our shop or our org, then please do feel free to hop into the Discord. The link's just down in the video description below. Even if your needs are a bit smaller than a full Polaris kit, I'm sure we can help you out, so please do just ask. With all that said, thank you very much for watching to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.